Hi, I'm Joanna Barron.
And I'm Leslie Gray.
Welcome to the Love and Dividends podcast, where women get smart about money.
We'll share interviews and conversations about optimizing your finances, getting started with investing, and building wealth.
Today, we're kicking off a mini-series on women in the cannabis space, and we're starting with an all-star. Trang Trinh is founding co-director and CEO of TREC Brands. She is one of the only female CEOs in the cannabis space. She became interested in cannabis while she was working in M&A consulting at Deloitte when she was sent to Jamaica to set up a cannabis company for a client in Kingston, and left shortly thereafter to co-found TREC Brands with partners Charles Clay Booth and Bassam Hanna.
Trang tells us about TREC Brands, an umbrella company she co-founded that encompasses 3 cannabis brands: Wink, Bliss'd, and Thumbs Up. We also discuss negative stigma surrounding female cannabis users, the emerging body of knowledge about the benefits of CBD and cannabis, and the importance of giving back and putting your money where your mouth is.
Enjoy! Okay, so we are here with all-star Trang Trinh of TREC Brands, who is doing a lot of very interesting and creative things in the cannabis space. How are you doing, Trang?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And
Thank you for joining us.
What's your WFH situation? Are you fully working from home or?
Yeah, so our whole team at TREC, we've transitioned to a work from home model actually before the province even mandated it. So I think we've been in this situation since March 12th, I believe. I've started slowly going into the office a little bit here and there, but primarily connect with the team through Zoom calls and Google Hangouts. And we've actually adapted quite well to this model.
Awesome.
Very cool. So why did you decide to enter the cannabis space where you work, and what has been the most eye-opening thing about it to you? Tell us more about your work and what you do.
Sure. So before entering the cannabis sector, I actually spent 4.5 years at Deloitte in the M&A practice, where I got the opportunity to cover many different transactions in this space in the life sciences sector, the retail sector, and also cannabis. So that really was what opened up my eyes to the opportunities in this space. In starting TREC, it was hugely because this is such a nascent industry, and it's really the ability to shape a new industry and to make an impact the way that we want to, with a product that I'm passionate about. And with TREC, there's such an incredible, smart, passionate, knowledgeable team. And we are really trying to lead in this space by our values. That's what TREC affectionately stands for, is trust, respect, equality, and compassion.
I love that. It reminds me of, I'm going to date myself, but I was, 12 when it was like raver time. And there's the acronym PLUR for peace, love, unity, and respect. So when I saw TREC was trust, respect. And what are the other two? Sorry?
Equality and compassion.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and I think that this is so important because, this industry hasn't been around for that long. And when we look at many other industries, it's important to start off from a values-based foundation, we believe. And I think the way we treat our employees, the way we treat our partners, our vendors, ultimately trickles down to our consumers as well. And I think that is hugely important, that we make all of our business decisions based on the foundation of trust, respect, equality, and compassion.
And just to follow up on it, because Deloitte to the cannabis space is in some ways kind of a big bridge to gap. And so can you talk a little bit about how you assembled your team and sort of how that materialized?
My current team or my team at Deloitte?
Your current team.
Sure. I would say that in building up TREC, a lot of our team members actually came in via way of word of mouth and knowing one another in our previous lives. But I would say that in terms of building the specific pillars of our team, because our business model is a house of brands, where we focus on sales and marketing, and we don't own any of the licenses, or we're not an LP, so we don't focus on the cultivating or processing or manufacturing. We needed to build teams around that had expertise in marketing, expertise in sales, and also expertise in operations and getting a product to market. So those were sort of the pillars that we originally looked at in building up the skill sets for the team.
Okay, cool. And so, so as you mentioned, TREC is really an interesting player in the market because it's not an LP, you're not involved in growing and cultivating. But what's cool is I feel like you guys are one of the only companies that is actually going into marketing and sort of presenting cannabis as, because the whole idea of legalization is that it becomes a consumer good and a regulated consumer good. And so some of the branding is really cool. And so obviously as a feminist woman focused podcast, we were most intrigued by Bliss'd, which is the female-focused lifestyle brand. And I know that part of it is not just to market to women so that your company can get our dollars, but also to break down perceived stigma around women and cannabis. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that created an opportunity in the market, but also about just the stigma of cannabis and women?
For sure. And just to take a step back, I know you mentioned the way our business model works. We actually have some friendly competition in the space too that we absolutely adore. Ace Valley has a very similar business model as we do, and so does our friends at High Noon. So there are a few of these house of brands that are now, coming up into this space. And I'd say that there's obviously lots of opportunities for brands to play because, in the past, LPs have really focused on the cultivating and the processing and the manufacturing, and brands were sort of, their last thought. So now there's more and more brands to hopefully cater to all different types of consumers out there. But Bliss'd is definitely my favorite one as well, if I'm allowed to say that. It's the one that I can relate to the most. And as you mentioned, it is a female-focused lifestyle brand. And when we did our research into launching a brand like Bliss'd, we surveyed a lot of women consumers within Canada, but we also leveraged a lot of other studies that had already been done as well. And in speaking to the stigma, there was a recent study that was done that showcased that 70% of women that use cannabis still feel the sting of negative stigmas. And I think that this has a lot to do with societal pressures that women are, looked upon to be the caretakers, to be the perfect mom, to be the perfect wife, to be the perfect daughter, to take care of her parents. So I think the stigma exists because of these societal pressures that and women fear that they're being judged, that if they use cannabis that they're judged as being a stoner or they're lazy or they're a bad parent. And so when we launched Bliss'd, the goal was really to launch a community and an educational hub that encourages women to drop the stigmas and be open about their cannabis usage and to be able to also share their joy with others. So our first product was actually not a cannabis product itself, but it was our online tool community, blissd.com, where we share a lot of information, whether it's Cannabis 101, whether it's stories from other cannabis users. It's really to create a hub and a community where women can trust and feel comfortable getting their source of information about cannabis. And
So
then,
you started a community, and so now, but you do have a suite of products. And
yes.
Can you just tell us about them? Because
Yeah.
they're really beautiful and fun.
Yeah, so we created these purposely designed products that really focus around the theme of wellness and self-care. We have 3 products out in the market under our Blissd brand right now. One is called Blissd Breathe, and that is our high CBD oil. This one is something that I actually use every day. It's a full spectrum oil made with MCT, blended with MCT, and it's a product that we creatively use in many of our blogs around cooking, adding to recipes, adding to cocktails, etc. It's a very versatile product that's out there, or you can use it your typical way of just dropping it on your tongue as well. But with the CBD oil, there's lots of creative ways that you can add it to your everyday self-care routine.
And so is it CBD, does it have any THC in it?
It has very small traces of THC in it, and that is because for CBD to actually work, you need tiny amounts of THC to activate the compound.
Cool. Yeah, CBD has been a game changer for me. It's for everything, for recovery. If I've been working out too hard, it gives me a creative buzz in the afternoon. I just love it. And topically, it's like super anti-inflammatory. It's just like a miracle compound. Agreed.
Yeah. And for me, when pre-COVID, when I was working out a whole lot more, I used to add them to my shakes after my workout. Like you said, it really helps with muscle recovery.
That's so cool. I think the stigma thing's so interesting because, for women, if it was like a bottle of Chardonnay, we'd just call them a real housewife and be like, that's what women do. But there's something
But that's what
cannabis.
I think is interesting. You have this archtype of like the boozy housewife, which is
totally acceptable for some reason.
But it's totally sexist and gross, right?
Also sexist
there's
and
nothing
gross.
wrong with enjoying a glass of wine. And then on the other hand, you have the other sexist archetype of like the stoner mama.
Exactly.
And, most women fit into neither category, and there's totally a dignified self-care, nourishing way to enjoy wine and cannabis. So I think it's great that you're not just providing products to help that, but actually just like providing archetypes and images of like, Trang Trinh of TREC brands who, uses CBD and works out and, runs a company and, nobody is like a lazy slacker here. So I think it's really cool.
And the self-care element. Yes. I really like that.
And we really tried to highlight that in our last campaign that you can find on our website as well, called Nothing to Hide, where we highlighted 3 incredible women where they speak about their cannabis usage. One is she's a personal trainer in Toronto, runs her own gym, and so how she uses it for muscle recovery. We also had Roxy, who is a big influencer in Canada, and how she uses CBD. And then we also had someone from the art community as well, and how she uses CBD to get creative. So it's really neat to be able to share these stories with other women, and to be able to relate to our end consumer.
Yeah, and just on a personal note, I have terrible cramps, not to be a TMI, but most of us are women here, and CBD has been so helpful for my menstrual cycle.
Really?
Yeah, total game changer. So just putting that out there, it could work for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I've heard many other women use it for the same. And I mentioned we had 3 products, so that was really our first one. And then we also have another oil called Blissd Bask, and this is a balanced ratio oil where there's equal parts of CBD and THC. So for anyone that wants to feel a little bit of a high, this oil is perfect for that. And then lastly, we have Blissd Beach, which is our high CBD pre-roll. So it's a 2-to-1 CBD to THC. Again, it has calming effects, keeps you happy, but also very sociable at the same time because it's a pretty low dosage of THC. But it's for someone that wants to feel a little bit more of a kick when they're using cannabis.
Nice. So where do you see the biggest growth opportunities happening right now in the space? Like, for example, what would be the most underrated aspect from an investor standpoint?
I'm probably biased, but I would definitely say brands. Creating brands that connect to the end consumer. Right now, the consumer is very much focused on price and percentage of THC. So, especially during COVID and as the country heads into a little bit of a recession, we are seeing that consumers are more focused on how they filter their product selection is lowest price, highest THC. However, I do believe that as cannabis continues to become destigmatized, the consumer base and preference will evolve where consumers will be looking to something that speaks to them, and that's where brands definitely come into play. Our brands Wink, Blissd, and Thumbs Up each reflect exciting and growing segments of the cannabis market. They're not huge segments, especially Wink and Blissd right now, because those are still new consumers to the market. But eventually, a couple years down the road from now, consumers will be looking towards brands that will cater to them. The other part of the industry is more the non-sexy parts of the business. So whether it's, cannabis fertilizers or lab testing, there's this quote that I like to reference. During the gold rush, it's a good time to be in the pick and shovel business. So what that means is instead of trying to dig for the gold, you sell the item that everyone will use, right? So in the case of cannabis, instead of making money by selling cannabis, you're better off selling accessories and products that producers, processors, and retailers will need versus selling to the end consumer.
Which would be, in this case, like rolling papers.
Rolling papers, like machinery, rolling machines, the parts where consumers don't usually see.
And are there players that are worth looking at that are making the machinery that might be interesting to buy a stock in, for example?
Yeah, so there are lots of players in the space. I don't know the names off the top of my head, but in terms of fertilizers and the actual what the cannabis grows in, there has been a company that I've been looking at called Scott's Miracle Grow, and I think have done a pretty good job in this space.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just looking them up right now, and their stock seems to be doing quite well.
Yeah, it's a
Very
good
cool.
tip. It's cool to think about the brands, and like I know Wink is I think marketed for like an upscale recreational user, if I recall correctly. Like I got the image of like you pull up with the red carpet with your chic pre-roll, but I don't know if I'm totally mischaracterizing.
No, that's actually a huge part of the market for Wink is around a little bit more of a unique product that's not for the mass consumer, but for someone that's looking for something a little bit different. And it is catering towards a more creative crowd around fashion, art, and music. And that's because this brand was originally created by Charles Caboose, who is one of our founders and sits on our board. And it revolves around a little bit of his lifestyle of like a little bit more upscale. He runs a huge part of the hospitality industry in Toronto and the GTA. So his art galleries and more upscale restaurants. So that's the clientele that we are catering to with that brand.
And who gets to curate the the actual product? Like, do you get to sample all of this high-end cannabis? Like, how does that happen? Does that sound really fun?
So we have an incredible, super smart, passionate product team within TREC, and they are on the daily calling licensed producers, finding product in the market. The issue or the problem is we actually can't sample the product per se until it hits the shelves, or if one of our LPs has a research and development license, and even then it's still very limited in what you can do because of Health Canada rules. So what we have to rely on are the testing that comes back from the labs. You know, does it hit a certain potency? Does it have a certain percentage of terpenes? But we do get to go and smell the product, but you can't actually sample it before it hits the shelves because of the regulations.
Fair enough. Must abide by the Cannabis Act. Live and die by it.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that's very unique about TREC is, if I understand correctly, you guys give back fully 10% of your profits to the community and to various charities. So first of all, was that the understanding from the get-go? And second of all, I'm sure you guys have investors. Do you ever get pushback on that? Because obviously the classic purpose of a corporation is to make maximum profit. So this is actually
to a profit.
Yeah, very
any business.
Very countercultural. So I just would like to hear more about how it evolved and how it's played out.
For sure. And at TREC, we are really leveraging the spotlight on the cannabis industry as a platform to highlight that businesses can be successful with the social good mandate. We developed 10% for Good, which is our program where we donate, as you mentioned, 10% of our gross profits back to the communities that we operate in. And it's really all based on consumer feedback. So every Thursday, we launch a campaign through our social platforms called Cause Thursdays. So if you follow us at Wink Cannabis, at b.blissd, or at thumbsup.brand, we're always polling and asking our followers what causes they would like us to donate to. So when we started this journey with TREC, we made all of our potential investors aware of our aspirations when we went out to raise money. It's included in our shareholders agreement. So you can rest assured that we didn't just accept anybody's money, and all of our investors had to buy in to our commitment to do good. I'd say in 2019, we had it was our first year in business. So we had a small pot that we were able to give back to 10 different charities. But we did spend a lot of our time with 4 of them. One being Dress for Success, which empowers women. Another one called House, No More Dreams, a not-for-profit incubator program for young creative entrepreneurs. Evergreen, which helps create Canadian cities with low carbon footprint, and it's really about giving back to the environment there. And then lastly, Cannabis Amnesty, and that's fighting for cannabis pardons and justice for Canadians harmed by cannabis prohibition and the historical policies. So we were super thrilled and excited that we were able to give back to those charities in 2019. This year so far, we've, with a lot of the social issues going around in the world, we had the opportunity to give back to the Australia fires in January. In May, we donated to Food Banks Canada to help with COVID-19. And this month, we are donating 10% of our profits to Black Lives Matter.
Awesome.
Awesome. Very cool. That's a really neat initiative, and I think so great to show business can be more than just the profits.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's something that is that everyone on our team is passionate about. And I would say that it's the reason why I wake up every morning to run TREC, but it's also the reason why our entire team is super passionate and excited about. And it also means that we have to work 10% harder so that we could be able to give 10% of our gross profits back to the communities.
Amazing. Well, we always like to end with our money wins segment, which is our quick tip or a purchase we feel good about or a way we saved or invested money. So, Trang, do you have a money win for us this week?
I recently purchased a Peloton. And I think,
yay, you're our second guest who has shouted out the
very
Peloton.
On trend.
Yeah. And for me, it's been my best investment during COVID. A good investment for your body and your mind. I would say that I was one of those patrons of a Barry's Boot Camp or a Ride Cycle Club in Toronto, and I was very motivated by working out with a lot of people around me. So I found that during quarantine, I was living a very sedentary lifestyle that I needed to make a change there. So the Peloton has definitely helped, and my body and mind is thanking me for it.
Amazing.
That's so cool. Yeah, and people are into it. How often are you using it? Can I ask about your Peloton usage?
Sure. The first month, I think I clocked, I was on almost a daily schedule. I think I might have missed 5 days of the month of May, although June has been a little bit more stressful at work and a little bit more time consuming, time demanding. So I've been trying to average about 3 to 4 rides a week.
Amazing.
But it's super fun because you actually can follow your friends and they can follow you, and you can video or virtually get them onto your screen and do the same class. So you see your friends cycle at the same time that you are in your own homes.
That's very cool. Do you do that with some of your friends?
Yes. A couple of them in the cannabis industry, and then some of my old colleagues from Deloitte. So although we are in isolation, we still feel pretty connected when we book those ride classes.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
That to me is the thing I miss the most about no gyms being open.
Yeah, is nice time to being able to work out with other people. Yeah. And I would say the other purchase, I'm actually just looking at it right now from my condo, is I have this balcony that I've never done anything with in the last 3 years, but I've really now extended my living space from our tiny condo onto the patio. So being able to deck it with patio tile, some furniture, some plants. So it really helps with spending more time at home to be able to spend it outside on the patio as well.
That's nice.
And especially now that summer is here and the weather's so gorgeous. I went out yesterday and I was just it's so beautiful out. You could almost forget about all of the horrible things that are happening in the world.
Yeah. The sunshine does do that.
Yeah. Les, what's your money win?
Actually, inspired by cycling, etc. Mine is a win that I've been a member of for a while. This is kind of lame, but it's the Bike Share Toronto. So it's sort of the Bixie bikes.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, during COVID, you need to be a bit more careful about your hand sanitizer and your gloves and systems like that. But they are fully open. I've actually been a member for probably the last 2 or 3 years. And you get a little fob for your keychain if you pay for the year membership. You can also rent them for, I think, a day, for a week. And how they work is you, like any bike share in other cities, but you basically you download the app. There's a whole bunch of places you can pick up a bike, and you just can only take it for 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. But you can go for a longer bike ride because you can just then return it to another stand and just take a new bike. So you can actually go out for a few hours and just keep kind of popping by, which then I use for my water breaks. So while my bike, which I haven't been able to get repaired yet and tuned up for the new season, I'm a big fan of the Toronto bike share. I just want to put it out there to people as an eco-friendly, healthy commuting option, as long as you're, sort of COVID prepared.
I have to check that out.
I love bike share. I've been a long-time fan too.
Yeah. So
What's
mine
yours, Joanna?
is kind of inspired by TREC's mission, but I made a donation to an initiative that I think is just beautiful. Obviously, you can donate to Black Lives Matter. There's also in Canada the Black Legal Action Committee, which specifically provides legal services to Black and low-income people. But another initiative that is less well known, but I just think it's beautiful, is called Black Girls Breathing. And it is a GoFundMe, or it's called GoFund Women, actually, to provide free meditation and breathwork classes for Black women for a year. And they have a stretch goal of $50,000, which they're going to spend on marketing and staff and overhead goals.
I love
donated. And yeah, I work part-time in the wellness space as a meditation teacher, and it is so obvious that it is inaccessible to most people who are not wealthy white women. And so I think these types of initiatives that are explicitly inclusive are so important. So I'll post a link to it. I highly recommend it, checking out and supporting. And yeah.
That's so great. Joanna, you will have to submit that on our Cause Thursday, this Thursday. Maybe I think it would fit really well under our Bliss'd brand.
I will do.
As an organization that we should look into. I will obviously push for it too, but if you follow us at b.blissd on Thursday, you'll have the opportunity to type in a comment box what organizations we should look at.
Awesome. I will do it.
That's so good to know. Thanks for sharing that, Joanna. That sounds really interesting and important and unique.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Trang. I know, so background, we were supposed to have this big party in Toronto this spring called Women in Weed, which we do every year. And Trang was going to be on the panel with a bunch of other amazing women, and then COVID hit, and you know the end of that story. So hopefully we'll still be able to do that, Trang, and actually be able to meet in person.
Yeah, I was so excited for that, and it was sad that it got postponed, but understandably. So I hope that once the regulations and rules allow for more people to get together, that we can do that towards the end of this year. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, have an amazing day, and we'll sign off with love and dividends.
Yeah, Thank you. Thank you for having me, Joanna and Leslie. Have a wonderful week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Love and Dividends podcast.
If you got value from this podcast, please share it with another woman who could benefit from the information that we shared.
And please consider rating us and leaving us a review on iTunes. It really helps with new podcasts.
If you have questions about finances and investing, have suggestions for future topics or guests, please let us know. You can shoot us a DM on Instagram, Love and Dividends, or you can send us an email at hello@loveanddividends.com.
With Love and Dividends.